Howler 9.6. Default installation, install on the program files, there it is. Yeah, let's just use the defaults there and go. Oh, all done. Alright. And downloading happening here. Let's see if we already have access to the community here while this is downloading. No, it's not showing it yet. Alright, there it is. So we should be able to see that now under here, launch it. Here's the installation. Oh, and I'm installing on my new Howler 10 beta. Poor choice. Well, you won't be doing this unless you're a beta tester. You'll be seeing this installation go into the regular folder, which is program files x86 Howler, or you'll see it go into Steam, what is it, apps or installed or something like that, and then you'll see it there. Alright, so this one here actually took some registry information and found that we already had it in the beta, and there we go. So, but now it's installed and ready to run. And welcome to Howler. Oh, let's do just one little thing here. Let's go create a quick render plasma noise. There you go. Let's go and create 3D designer. There you go. Let's give it a little bit more options. Let's give it some texture. There you go. Let's give it a little bit of snow, a little bit less on the grass, and something like this. Then let's add some colorized snow packs, which we see here. Or do we? That's the green, that's the white, there it is. A little bit more erosion. Oh, and we need to do that erosion right here. There you go. Alright, what else? We need some lighting. Alright, let's work on the light source. There's that top light. We're going to bring it all the way to the top, all the way in the center. So it is really in the middle, right there. Right, all the way above, and then adjust the brightness here. This is a slightly bluish color. And then here we have a reddish. That one we're going to keep directional, a little bit lower, a little bit farther away, and a little bit brighter, so we can see it shine from the side. And then enable the ray traced shadows rendered on the GPU, and here we can see the shadows do their magic. Now let's change the background color. Let's go something like this, and make that also the fog. So there's a distance fog, which we can see here, and then there is also a ground fog. Now that one is linear or non-linear. Let's go non-linear and get a little bit of ground fog. Adjust the amplitude here at the top, right? And perhaps have it more of a telephoto lens rather than the wide angle, where I'm feeling I'm really in the scene. Let's reduce the fog, maybe all together. Rotate this here. Use the pitch to bring it down a little bit, and something like this. Alright, we're getting close here. What I want to do really is create a scene that we could use in a scroller game. That could be just a static image. Right, if you have a scrolling background, it could just be a single render. Let's go make it the best possible, anti-aliasing at level 5. And then here the pre-filter. If you like it a little bit more rounded edges, rounded features, you can do that. So let's go zoom in a little bit. And then we could simply render that and work it from there as the background image you use. But there is another technique too, and that would be to actually use this system to do the animation and move the camera sideways. So I'm going to go and undo this for right now. and I'm going to go and create an animation placeholder to play at 30 frames per second, and it will be just 30 frames at first. And then so here we are going to go to the timeline where we see the same filter. Filters 1, 2, 3 down on the scroll bar and go down to 3D Designer, and it remembers the parameters we just had, right? But it's also going to let us interpolate some of those parameters. So first we'll choose what we want. I'm going to go a little bit slower or lower on the anti-aliasing just for the demo. I don't need the very fastest. In fact, let's see the very fastest. No anti-aliasing. A little bit up on the pre-filter so we don't get too much noise. And let's see if we want to do last minute changes here on the sediments. And the light range, perhaps have a little bit brighter, too bright, a little bit darker, something like that. Alright. What I do like is the lighting to come low so that you get long shadows. So I'm gonna go with something like this. And then also, if you want to make it look like there is some wet snow, give some hardness really low and then specular highlight a little bit higher. That will make it look a little bit more like some reflections on specular areas, wet areas usually. So here we go, something like that. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll do an animation when we move the camera or the terrain, right, relative to the camera, going sideways like that. Perhaps even more, less camera zoom, less perspective, and I would say that's basically it. Now what we want to do is really click OK, and in the timeline we can do a rendering. We can further adjust that, and then we have the keyframes here. Remember, this is only 30 keyframes, so it's a very short animation. But we'll do a motion interpolated transition from left to right. So what we'll do is keep a particular angle, zoom in a bit closer so half of the image is gone, and then move it sideways. So let's go around this much. We will also crop it, all right? We're not going to keep much of the sky, and especially the bottom here. We will crop that away, so we really have mostly this scene. The bottom of it is going to go, and the sky is going to be partly visible. So that's the idea for this particular exercise. Let's go and put this one here, and then here transition to the other side. So I'm setting the other keyframe. So we now have a transition from one to the other position. You can see how it's moving sideways here. Go render that. Now remember, this one is rendering without anti-aliasing, so it's going to go fairly fast. As you see here at the top, it's going less than a second per frame. Certainly if you do anti-aliasing, it's going to take significantly longer. And so now I have this animation, and here we go. The last frame is duplicated at the beginning. We can take that away, so there's one frame we will sacrifice. But you see this transition, and we can start also doing some work such as cropping. Let's use the image crop tool or the crop to selection. Right? So now, since we haven't made the selection yet, what I'll do first is go to overlay alpha to show the selection, and then actually do a rectangular selection, something like this here. We can go something like that. Right? Maybe as we scrub through that, we see some of the peaks being cut off here. What we may want to do is use the control key and move this selection up a little bit, kind of do a test selection and say, okay, maybe a little bit lower, something like this, and a little bit lower down here. Right, so now we have a fairly decent selection where the bottom is not going to show the end of the terrain, and the top is showing just a little bit of sky, not too much. And let's go and crop to that selection. There is another tool, by the way. There's the crop tool, also great to use. This time here I just wanted to crop to selection, and so we have this transition. The next thing I want to do obviously is to make this go a little bit slower. So one thing also, check the dimensions. Image info will tell you if you got some odd numbers now after cropping. And that happens a lot. So maybe we need it a little bit scaled up, resampled up to 1024 or 1280. I'm going to try down 960, right? And Shouldn't be 444 is okay, but it's not a very standard dimension. Maybe I can make it like 480 or 440. Let's do that. You know, if it's only a few pixels off, it's not gonna go very distorted, if you know what I mean. So here you go. Now we need to do that motion prediction interpolation to slow it down. Before we do that, I'm going to store this to disk, so we have a snapshot copy here. This one's pretty slow, so it goes kind of instantaneous. If you have an SSD, solid state disk, that's awesome, or a really high speed disk with very little fracturing on it, and it doesn't need to be decluttered. You'll see that go really fast. Alright, so let's go and do the filter animated motion prediction module. And we'll do a test first, a dry run. We'll give it 7 tweens. Between each frame, there's going to be 7 new tweens. We're going to give because it's moving pretty fast, we're going to increase the search distance for these tiles. Right, and then we're gonna give it the fudge factor go down to 1 or 0 because we want it to really try harder and look for them. Alright, and then here we go, 190 frames. Now you'll notice at the bottom there is some ickiness happening here. Same thing here on the edge, on the side. Same thing at the top, a bit difficult to see because it's all just plain blue. But here on the sides, essentially there's a frame of about the width of this here, 12 pixels, maybe a little bit more, where the system just doesn't know what to interpolate from or what to interpolate to. It doesn't have that information beyond the edge. So it can't produce anything really meaningful, and it gives you that noise. So I'm going to go with perhaps even more. I'm going to say 9. Let's see how many that would be. 244. I'm sure we can do that. What's important is to see that in here we don't have any sort of distortions. No swimming, no wiggly stuff. And then you could, if you want to take the time, add a refinement pass, uncheck this and go. I'm going to go without the refinement pass and just let it go like that. Alright, so we have now initially just 29 frames or 30 frames, and we're going to go into about 200 and something. 243 frames. The first frame is a duplicate of the last. Delete that, and as we mentioned, we do have some ickiness happening here at the bottom on the edges because it really didn't know what to interpolate to or from. Right, so your mission, should you accept it, is to crop that to get rid of it. Right, so I'm going to go, for instance, do this cropping thing again with the rectangle selection. I'm going to go get rid of this. Let's go to rectangular selection, something roughly around this much, right? And maybe even a little bit less. Let's not be too greedy and do something like that. Alright, or you know, if we don't want that, what we could do, in fact, let me clear the selection and use the crop tool this time. Now when you use the crop tool, it's going to make it full screen to show you as much as possible, and then you can grab these corners and maybe keep about the same aspect ratio. So go more horizontally than you go vertically, because this one has much more space horizontal than vertical. If you want to keep that aspect ratio, that is. Right? So you could, for instance, see how much you need to go down vertically, and then go perhaps twice as much horizontally. And then if there's an area you like particularly, you can just drag it around and right-click here to crop to that. So here we go, we have now a nice smooth transition. We could make it even smoother.